Good morning, friends. Myself, Dr. Nidhi Darbari on My Education Treasure. Today, in my present video, I am going to discuss about lecturing, a teaching device, its meaning and shortcomings. The lecture method is perhaps the most commonly applied technique of teaching in colleges and universities. In this method, the educator makes careful preparation of his subject and then communicates this knowledge to his class in the form of a continuous monologue known as the lecture. More often than not, he is not concerned whether his students are comprehending his speech at all. One finds that a majority of the students' business lies in taking down notes of the lecture being delivered. Most educators who receive university education and turn to school teaching use this technique even with the young children. This is very unjustifiable because the lecture method may be appropriate for higher education, but it is unsuitable for the teaching children at the primary and secondary level. Even at the higher level of education, this technique should be employed only as one of the many techniques, not as the only method which can be used to the advantage. Shortcoming at primary and secondary level. At every stage of education, the most immediate aim of teaching is that the subject should be understood by the students. And if this can be achieved by the lecture method, it should be employed. But if it is found that even at the university level, the lecture method is not the most beneficial, there can be no reason for continuing with it. In actual fact, one finds that very few educators care whether even one member of the class is listening to their lecture. Hence, they are not bothered about making their lecture powerful or effective. The most obvious advantage of the lecture method seems to be that it can teach a large number of students simultaneously without necessitating the use of other aids. But the normal criterion behind its application is that the educator find it the simplest method, apart from the pleasure he may derive from expressing himself and thus deriving some satisfaction. At the primary and secondary level of education, the technique manifests the following shortcomings. Inactive method. This is the most inactive or negative of the various techniques of teaching, since all that the student is required to do is to listen patiently. Obviously, it cannot bring forth the same advantage that the more active methods can. Indifference of the educator. In most cases, the educator using the lecture method evinces a total indifference to the interest, attention, progress, etc. of the students. He thinks that his sole concern is to deliver the lecture without concerning himself about the advantage the student derives from it. Absence of concentration. In such a situation, most of the students pay little attention to the speech of the lecture, and while they are bodily present in the class, they are mentally absent. Unpsychological. Psychologically speaking, the true function of education is not to stuff the child's mind with information, but to encourage the child to acquire this information actively and for himself. The lecture method is unpsychological in that it chooses the first alternative and the wrong one. Being inactive, the student listens to the lecture but assimilates very little of it. Absence of active knowledge. Any piece of information or knowledge can be permanent and effective only when it is acquired through one's effort. In the lecture method, the knowledge is graciously offered to the student by the lecturer. If you found the video to be informative and interesting, I request you all to please give a like to the video to motivate me, share it with others and subscribe it so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get a notification. Rapid speech. Very frequently, the educator's speed in talking is far greater than can be desirable, with the result that the student cannot hear something, cannot understand other things, while of the remainder, most are not concerned with his own experience and so completely beyond his comprehension. Absence of teacher-taught relationship. The lecture method affords little, if any, scope of any relationship between the educator and the student, while almost all educationists agree that an intimate relationship should exist between the two. Use of auditory powers only. It is generally believed in psychology that the process of learning becomes more rapid if it involves the use of all the sense organs. The lecture method exercises only the auditory powers of the students and hence fail to make any impact. In spite of these defects, this is the most commonly employed method of teaching in the country today. At the university level and other institutions of higher learning, this is the only method that is being used, a situation which calls for serious thought. Why this method should be used? To motivate the students, to give an overview of a large topic, to supplement the students' reading, to make an important matter understood, to provide background of a topic or to introduce the topic, to help the student to use their time wisely, to explain the major concepts of a lesson, to develop reasoning skill of students, to have a classroom discussion. Educational significance of lecturing. It is an economical teaching device. No laboratory apparatus, gadgets, etc. are required. It can be used for a very large group of students without the use of other aids. It provides training to the students in listening and taking rapid notes. It is used to achieve the cognitive and affective objectives. It gives students good training and experience in the development of certain skills like learning by hearing, writing while taking notes, attending the auditory and visual presentation. It provides the opportunity to the teacher to use different techniques and methods like question-answer technique, discussion method, etc. in order to capture their attention towards the lecture. Thank you very much for patiently watching the video and don't forget to subscribe.